If you've seen the movie Titanic, you might think Titanic II sounds like a sequel, but this isn't another film. It's a real ship, modeled after the original, and set to become one of the grandest vessels in history. Stick around as we dive into everything you need to know about this ambitious and risky project set to set sail in 2027. But make sure you like the video and you're subscribed to the Visionary Builds channel. The original Titanic, a tragic legend. Before we get into Titanic II, we need to understand why the original Titanic became so famous. You see, back in 1912, the RMS Titanic was considered a marvel of engineering. It was the biggest and most luxurious ship of its time, designed to be unsinkable. But as you probably know, it hit an iceberg on its maiden voyage, it sank and killed over 1,500 people. This shocked the world and became one of the most famous tragedies in human history. At the time, the Titanic was a symbol of human ambition and progress because it wasn't just another ship, it was the ship that everyone wanted to be on. Built by the White Star Line, it stretched about 882 feet long, stood 175 feet tall, and had some of the most extravagant features ever seen on a vessel. We're talking grand staircases, lavish dining rooms, smoking lounges, a pool, even a gym. These are things that were unheard of on a passenger ship back then. It was a floating palace, catering especially to the wealthy elites who wanted to cross the Atlantic in style. On board, first-class passengers dined on multi-course meals, enjoyed live music, and relaxed in luxurious suites that rivaled the best hotels of the time. But for all its elegance, Titanic had a fatal flaw, which lied in its overconfidence. The ship was marketed as practically unsinkable due to its advanced design, which included 16 watertight compartments meant to keep it afloat even if some of them flooded. Unfortunately, the compartments weren't completely sealed at the top. So when the iceberg hit on the night of April 14, 1912, water began spilling from one compartment to the next like a domino effect. And within hours, the unsinkable ship was at the bottom of the Atlantic. But what made the tragedy even worse was the lack of lifeboats. Despite being one of the most advanced ships of its time, Titanic only had enough lifeboats for about half the passengers aboard. Many lifeboats weren't even filled to capacity, meaning that hundreds of people who could have been saved were left stranded in the freezing ocean. Most died of hypothermia within minutes. The world was mortified, not just by the scale of the disaster, but by the sheer arrogance that led to it. But Titanic's sinking wasn't just a tragic accident, as it became a powerful lesson in humility. It exposed the dangers of overconfidence and the need for better safety regulations. After the disaster, maritime laws changed drastically. Ships were required to carry enough lifeboats for all passengers, conduct proper safety drills, and maintain constant radio communication. Over the years, though, Titanic's story has only grown. From books to documentaries to James Cameron's blockbuster movie, the legend of the Titanic has never faded. It remains a haunting reminder of how even the greatest human achievements can be undone by a single mistake, or in this case, one iceberg in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The man behind Titanic II. Fast forward to 2012, and an Australian billionaire named Clive Palmer announced his plan to build a modern version of the Titanic, calling it Titanic II, with the goal of recreating the ship as closely as possible while adding modern safety features. Sounds pretty ambitious, right? Palmer even formed a company called Blue Star Line, named after the White Star Line that owned the original Titanic. So who exactly is this Clive Palmer? Well, if you don't know, Palmer's not just your average businessman. He's a mining tycoon, a former politician, and a man known for making big, bold claims. This guy doesn't do things small. His wealth came from mining operations in Australia, where he made billions extracting iron ore, coal, and other resources. And with all that money, Palmer had the luxury of funding ambitious projects. And Titanic II was definitely one of the biggest. When he first announced Titanic II, he made it clear that this was not just some publicity stunt. He genuinely wanted to recreate the luxury and grandeur of the original ship while making sure it didn't suffer the same tragic fate. The new Titanic would have nearly identical interiors, complete with grand staircases, first-class suites, and elegant dining rooms. However, it would also be equipped with modern technology, including better hull design, advanced navigation systems, and enough lifeboats for everyone on board. But we'll talk more about the features of this gigantic ship later on in the video. Now, Palmer was passionate about history, and he saw Titanic II as a tribute to the past while embracing the future. He envisioned it as more than just a ship and hoped to make it more of an experience. Passengers would be encouraged to dress in early 20th century attire to fully immerse themselves in the era. The menus would reflect what was served on the original Titanic, and the entire voyage was meant to feel like stepping back in time. So, if you ever wanted to feel like you were living in 1912, minus the iceberg part, this was your chance. Delays and financial problems. But even as exciting as this sounds, executing a project as large as this is not a walk in the park. At first, Titanic II was supposed to launch in 2016. Then the date got pushed to 2018, then 2022, and now the latest plan is for it to sail in 2027. But the financial struggles of Titanic II are no small matter. Building a ship of this size and historical significance is already an expensive endeavor. But when you add multiple delays, the costs start piling up. Clive Palmer initially estimated the project to cost around $500 million. However, with each delay, that number continued to go up. Inflation, increased material costs, and changes in shipbuilding regulations over the years have all contributed to the ballooning expenses. Every time the project was stalled, the price of steel, labor, and other crucial components increased, making it even harder to restart. But why all the delays? Well, one of the biggest financial hurdles was Palmer's own company, Mineralogy. In 2013, just a year after announcing the Titanic II project, Mineralogy became entangled in a legal dispute with a Chinese company over unpaid royalties. The case dragged on for years, creating uncertainty about whether Palmer had the funds to push forward with Titanic II. This legal battle, combined with fluctuating iron ore prices, which directly impacted Palmer's wealth, put the entire project on ice. Investors became hesitant, banks were cautious, and for a while, Titanic II seemed more like an expensive fantasy than a real ship. Additionally, shipbuilding itself is an industry with massive upfront costs. Unlike cars or airplanes, which can be built on assembly lines, ships need large-scale infrastructure, specialized labor, and years of work before they even touch the water. Securing a shipyard, hiring naval architects, and meeting modern safety and environmental standards all cost millions. The longer a project sits in limbo, the more expensive it becomes to restart. The Titanic II delays meant that shipbuilders had to be recontracted, original plans had to be reviewed for updated regulations, and old cost estimates had to be revised. And in this case, every revision showed an increase in building cost. So, by the time Blue Star Line confirmed in 2024 that the project was moving forward again, it had already lost years of momentum. Unfortunately, investors who were once excited about the idea had backed away and public interest had waned. And let me tell you, getting fresh capital for a project that's been delayed so many times is no easy task. As we speak, the company now faces the challenge of rebuilding confidence while dealing with a much higher price tag than originally expected. So whether the ship finally sets sail in 2027 or faces yet another delay remains to be seen. But one thing is clear, Titanic II has already cost far more than anyone initially planned. Still, those who are eager to experience the thrill of sailing on one of the most iconic ships of all time will hope that this project gets completed sooner than later. How will Titanic II be different? Now, if you're wondering whether the new Titanic will be an exact copy of the old one, the answer is both yes and no. Yes, Titanic II will look almost identical to the original from the outside, with the same classic design, 4 giant funnels, and luxurious interiors. However, today's safety laws mean that some major changes had to be made. For starters, Titanic II will have modern navigation and radar systems, which the original didn't have. It'll also get built with a stronger welded steel hull instead of the riveted one used in 1912. The biggest change is the addition of a whole new safety deck with enough lifeboats and escape routes for every passenger. If the original Titanic had this, the disaster in 1912 could have been avoided. One of the most exciting things about Titanic II is that it'll have 3 different classes of passengers, just like the original. First class rooms will be designed to look exactly like the ones from 1912, with elegant furniture and grand dining walls. But don't worry, there'll also be modern touches like Wi-Fi and AC. Second and third class areas will also stay true to history, giving passengers a chance to experience what life was like on the Titanic over 100 years ago. One fun detail is that passengers will even be able to wear period-style clothing to make the experience feel more authentic. Can you imagine stepping onto the Titanic dressed in early 1900s fashion? It's like traveling back in time, but with all the comforts of today. While the overall look and feel of Titanic II will mirror the original, the ship itself will be slightly larger. The original Titanic was about 882 feet long, while Titanic II will be around 883 feet. The width will also be slightly increased, making it a bit more stable in the water, meaning more room for passengers and better structural integrity, but without changing the ship's historic appearance. Speaking of passengers, Titanic II will carry nearly the same number as the original. The first Titanic could accommodate around 2,435 passengers, while the new version carries about 2,400 on the nose. The crew size will be nearly identical, with over 900 staff members ensuring a smooth voyage. Unlike the original, however, every single person aboard will have access to a lifeboat, something that was tragically lacking back in 1912. Safety is where the biggest changes come in. In addition to the extra decks specifically built for lifeboats, Titanic II will be equipped with modern satellite technology, digital navigation, and advanced weather tracking. The original Titanic had nothing like this, relying solely on lookout crews and wireless telegraphs to communicate. Today's version will have GPS, sonar, state-of-the-art communication tools to ensure that there are no unexpected icebergs on the way. Another major improvement is the building materials used for construction. The first Titanic's hull was built using riveted steel plates, making it vulnerable to cracking under extreme pressure. Titanic II will use welded steel, which is significantly stronger and more resistant to damage. This means the new ship will be far better prepared to handle rough seas, ensuring a much safer journey. Beyond safety, Titanic II will also focus on passenger comfort. The first Titanic was known for its luxury, but still lacked many of the conveniences we take for granted today. The new version will have modern heating and cooling systems, private bathrooms in every cabin, and elevators that run more smoothly and efficiently. There will also be stabilizers built into the ship's design, reducing the amount of swaying and making for a more comfy ride. Speed is another area where Titanic II differs from its predecessor. The original Titanic could hit a top speed of around 23 knots, but Titanic II is expected to be slightly slower at about 22 knots. This is because the focus is on safety and stability rather than trying to set any speed records. The slower pace will allow for better fuel efficiency and smoother sailing, making the experience more enjoyable for passengers. Another important difference is in how the ship will be powered. The first Titanic ran on coal-fired steam engines, requiring massive boilers and a team of workers to shovel coal around the clock. Titanic II, on the other hand, will be powered by diesel engines, which are far more efficient and environmentally friendly. This not only reduces emissions, but also makes the ship much easier to operate and maintain. In terms of amenities, Titanic II will offer a mix of historic charm and modern convenience. The grand staircase, the famous dining halls, and even the smoking rooms will all be recreated with painstaking attention to detail. However, passengers will also have access to a modern gym, a spa, and even a theater for entertainment. The original Titanic had a swimming pool, and Titanic II is going to continue that tradition, though with better filtration and heating systems. The layout of the ship will remain largely the same, with separate areas for first, second, and third class. However, accessibility has been improved dramatically. The original Titanic had very few accommodations for people with disabilities, but Titanic II will have elevators, ramps, and other features to ensure that everyone can enjoy the experience comfortably. Even the lifeboats themselves will be different. The first Titanic's lifeboats were made of wood and could only hold a fraction of the passengers on board. Titanic II's lifeboats will be made from reinforced materials and have built-in GPS tracking and emergency supplies. There will also be enclosed lifeboats that provide better protection from harsh weather, ensuring the passengers are safer in the unlikely event of an evacuation. Despite these upgrades, Titanic II will still offer an experience that closely resembles the golden age of ocean travel. The goal is to recreate the magic of the original voyage while eliminating the dangers that led to the tragedy. From the outside, it may look like a ship frozen in time, but inside it's going to be a perfect blend of history and modern innovation. So, will Titanic II be the same as the first Titanic? In appearance, yes. In spirit, absolutely. But when it comes to safety, technology, and comfort, it's a whole new ship. One that honors the past while embracing the future. Still, a lot of people are asking the same question. Is Titanic II a disaster waiting to happen? Let's be real, the idea of recreating a ship that famously sank is a little bit scary, but the team behind Titanic II insists that this ship will be one of the safest ever built. Thanks to modern technology, the new Titanic will have advanced weather monitoring, satellite communications, and fire detection systems. Plus, the ship's hull will be stronger and there will be enough lifeboats for everyone on board. Simply put, this version of the Titanic won't be making the same mistakes as the first one. Where will Titanic II travel to and when? Now, here's something interesting. The original plan was for Titanic II to follow the same route as the first Titanic, sailing from England to New York. But recent reports suggest that the ship might also visit other destinations. While the England to New York route is the most historically significant, Palmer has hinted that Titanic II might embark on a world tour before settling into a regular schedule. This means that rather than just repeating the ill-fated journey of the original, the new ship could make stops at various iconic ports across the globe. Some reports suggest that it could visit cities like Southampton, New York, Dubai, and Hong Kong, but these locations aren't just chosen at random, as each one has a connection to maritime history, luxury travel, or the modern cruise industry. And let's be honest, a ship like Titanic II isn't just about getting from point A to B. It's about the experience, the spectacle, and the sheer novelty of sailing on a modern-day version of one of the most famous ships in history. China is another major destination that keeps coming up in discussions about Titanic II's possible routes. Given the massive interest in luxury cruises among Chinese travelers, it wouldn't be surprising if the ship makes a few appearances in Shanghai or Beijing's nearby ports. In fact, there have been suggestions that Titanic II could even be based in China for part of the year. Palmer's business dealings in the country and China's growing influence in global tourism make this a logical move. Just imagine the ship docking in Shanghai's futuristic skyline, blending the nostalgia of 1912 with the modern world. It would be a striking image and a massive draw for tourists. And of course, Australia is also expected to be a key destination. Clive Palmer himself has mentioned the idea of the ship making its way to Sydney, which makes sense given his personal ties and the country's love for grand maritime spectacles. Sydney's harbor is one of the most famous in the world, and seeing Titanic II sail past the Opera House and Harbour Bridge would be a once-in-a-lifetime sight. Plus, Australia has a strong cruise culture with thousands of people taking trips to the South Pacific every year. Titanic II could become a part of that, offering Australians a chance to step back in time without traveling across the world. Another rumored possibility is that Titanic II could eventually offer transatlantic voyages on a more regular basis, similar to what the Queen Mary II does right now. Because while most modern cruise ships focus on tropical destinations, there's still a market for those who want to experience the classic ocean liner journey between Europe and the North Americas. And if Titanic II sticks to its original purpose, we might see it sailing between Southampton and New York regularly, giving passengers a taste of what it was like to cross the Atlantic in the golden age of travel. There's also been speculation about a world cruise where Titanic II would take an extended journey to major port cities across several continents. Imagine stepping aboard in London, making stops in Paris, Rome, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, Sydney, and then finishing up in New York. It would be the ultimate bucket list experience, blending history, luxury, and global travel all in one. If demand's high enough, this could become a recurring itinerary, attracting both history buffs and those just looking for a unique cruise experience. Of course, all of this depends on when the ship finally sets sail. The launch date's been pushed back multiple times, but for now the project is supposedly moving forward and we're looking at 2027. And if Titanic II finally does take to the seas, its destinations will likely depend on market demand and logistical considerations. But one thing's for sure, wherever it goes, people will be watching. Whether it's making a grand entrance into Sydney, cruising through the busy ports of Hong Kong, or following the historic path to New York, Titanic II is set to be one of the most talked about ships of the modern era. What's going on now, and how much will a trip cost? The construction of the ship is moving full steam ahead, and every passing day brings us closer to setting sail on a journey like no other. Engineers and designers are working tirelessly to ensure that every detail is perfected, from the luxurious cabins to the state-of-the-art safety systems. The hull is already taking shape, and the interior work is progressing smoothly, with lavish lounge, grand dining halls, and first-class suites all being carefully crafted to match the highest standards of comfort and elegance. The ship is designed to be a seamless blend of classic maritime beauty and cutting-edge innovation. Every rivet, every plank, and every polished brass fixture is placed with precision, ensuring an experience that honors the golden age of ocean travel while embracing the advancements of modern engineering. The project remains on schedule, and before long, the ship will be ready to welcome passengers aboard for an unforgettable voyage. Now, let's talk about ticket prices. While final pricing is still being fine-tuned, early estimates suggest that ticket costs will reflect the ship's premium experience. Economy class fares will start around $900 to $1,500, offering comfortable accommodations and access to world-class dining and entertainment. Mid-tier cabins will range from $3,000 to $5,000, featuring larger rooms and additional amenities. For those seeking the ultimate in luxury, first-class suites are expected to start at $10,000 and can go well beyond $50,000, offering private butlers, lavish interiors, and exclusive access to VIP areas. With anticipation building and demand already soaring, securing a ticket early is going to be key. Soon, the ocean's grandest adventure will be ready to set sail, and those lucky enough to be aboard will witness history in the making. So, what do you think about Titanic II? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We here at Visionary Builds are committed to releasing 2 videos for you to watch. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more great visionary builds. Thanks for watching.